Hey, I'm Yakov. If there's one thing that every Swift developer learns early on, is that Xcode is a monster. Slow, clumsy, unstable, you can hear all these things and even more. While it's gotten better over the last few years, Xcode still has a long way to go before it can become your favorite IDE. That's true for me at least. And Xcode is not just a monster, it's actually a Frankenstein's monster. What I mean is that Xcode wasn't a single app from the very beginning. It's actually a cross between multiple apps which used to be separate. Project Builder, Interface Builder, and so on. But among the criticism, you might be overlooking a few really neat features of Xcode. And in this video, I'll highlight a few of them. Some simply make your work easier. Some can save you and your team many hours during code reviews. And some can actually change your opinion about the frameworks you might consider outdated. And that's exactly what I want to start with. I personally find SwiftUI overrated for its actual capabilities. I mean, even today it's still somewhat limited compared to UIKit or AppKit. But one thing I can't deny is the superior developer experience that SwiftUI offers. No, not that. I'm talking about instant previews, or hot reloading. When SwiftUI was introduced 5 years ago, this was one of its key highlights. And for good reason. SwiftUI shows your changes right away, while in UIKit you have to wait until your app recompiles and launches, and then manually navigate to the screen you're working on. I'm sure many people wish they could combine... No, not that combine. I'm sure many people wish they could have the best of both worlds. The reliability of Cocoa and the developer experience of SwiftUI. Well, the wait is over. These days, hot reloading works with UIKit and AppKit just as well. And actually, it's worked with your tried and true views and view controllers for a while now. Macros were introduced in Swift in version 5.9, and Xcode leveraged their power to support previews for UIKit and AppKit the same way it previews SwiftUI components. But surprisingly, I haven't seen many mentions of this feature, let alone its actual use in real-world projects. If you do use it, I'd love to read your feedback in the comments. But in my experience, this feature remains grossly underrated, even though enabling it literally takes only 30 lines of code. The syntax you use is exactly the same as in SwiftUI. And so are the rules. The view must be fully initialized in the preview closure, so if the view takes any sort of arguments or dependencies, you have to provide them explicitly. The preview macro works with both UIKit and AppKit. You can use any view or view controller, no matter how simple or complex it is. And it also doesn't matter whether it's created in code or visually in Interface Builder. I checked many scenarios and was extremely satisfied with the results. Speaking of SwiftUI, I appreciate many things about it, but it's just failed me too many times. I just can't use it as my main or the only UI framework. Until now, I had to choose between reliability and ease of use. But with the extended previews in Xcode, that's no longer the case. Just to clarify, I'm not a SwiftUI hater. I don't shy away from using it. In fact, most of my projects have some components built with SwiftUI. Only now, I don't have to make a trade. But you know where I do have to make a trade, at least for now? In the next feature on my list. We all love our code to be formatted nicely and consistently. And luckily, we've got more than one tool to achieve that. However, they all share a common flaw. You have to take some extra steps to run the formatter. In the best case scenario, your repo has a good hook. It triggers the script on each commit, and your CI makes sure that badly formatted pull requests can't be merged. But in the worst case scenario, you have to open the terminal and type the formatter command manually before you make each and every commit. Xcode 16 tries to solve this problem with an easier solution. Last year's version ships with Swift format built in. In case you haven't heard of it, Swift format, not to be confused with the other Swift format, it is yet another tool for linting and formatting code. Just as you would expect, it can check your code for style errors and fix some of them automatically. What makes Swift format unique is that it's bundled with Swift itself, and because of that, it's available as a subcommand. Xcode 16 takes a step further and lets you reformat the file you're working on with a single shortcut. Basically, as soon as you've made your changes, you press Shift-Ctrl-I and the code gets formatted right away. No switching between apps and no waiting. Looks fantastic, right? Yes, but what about, of course there are caveats. They always are when it comes to Xcode. Where things start to fall apart is when you want to customize Swift format's behavior. The good news is that Xcode is smart enough to discover and use the config file you have in your repo. That means you can have consistent styling no matter where you run Swift format. In Xcode, from the terminal, or on your CI machine. The bad news is that Swift format's config files aren't versatile enough. At least that's my impression. You can customize many options, but some pretty common ones are still missing, and their absence is hard to explain. For instance, Swift format doesn't let you keep white spaces on empty lines. Maybe it's not a big deal, and maybe you don't really need those white spaces. Except Xcode has this option enabled by default, which means Xcode and Swift format will be constantly fighting with each other. It's just one example of a missing feature, but it's not the only one. In short, using Swift format in a real project might require some sacrifices from your side. However, I'm fairly optimistic about Swift format's future as part of Xcode. To me, it looks really promising. Maybe at some point you'll be able to have it run automatically whenever you save or close a file. But to be honest, some projects I've seen would benefit from any sort of linter, even if it's not very customizable. Besides, there's one more good news about Swift format. The tool itself is open source and in active development. I believe I even saw a pull request which has the missing rule for whitespace only lines, so I keep my fingers crossed. Speaking of pull requests, here comes the next feature I want to highlight. You definitely know that Xcode has integrated tools for version control. In fact, it had them way before Git became the industry standard. Whether they're good or not is a matter of opinion, but the fact remains. When you want to commit your changes, you don't really need to open the terminal, source tree, GitHub desktop, or whatever client you prefer. But what you might not know is that when you create pull requests, you don't have to switch between apps either. Xcode lets you publish, discuss, and review pull requests right in the editor. It works with GitHub, Bitbucket, and GitLab, including their enterprise or self-hosted flavors. Speaking of the actual experience using this feature, I've got mixed feelings, not gonna lie about that. In very simple scenarios, Xcode works fine, but a number of helpful features are still missing. For instance, when you review changes, you can't mark files as viewed. That is something GitHub has had for many years. When you want to comment on specific lines, Xcode also can help you. And the user interface leaves much to be desired. For example, it still takes me a moment to realize that this big text field is for the pull request description. And the title field is hidden somewhere in the corner, barely visible. I'd say the whole source control subsystem of Xcode could use a bit of polish. Nah, not a bit actually. But when all you need is to quickly publish your changes with a pull request, this feature does the job. Of course, a list of Xcode tricks would be incomplete without a mention of its shortcuts. But there's just so many of them, I'm not hoping to cover even a small fraction in this video. What I'll do instead is share just a few whose existence hadn't been obvious to me. But when I learned about them, they quickly became my everyday helpers. Now, a typical Xcode project may contain hundreds, if not thousands of source files. When you're investigating a crash, sometimes all you have is the name of the file, or even a single function within it. Finding either in the project may not be the easiest task. Shift-Command-O lets you simplify it, and I'm pretty sure you're familiar with this shortcut. But let's say now you want to see where this file resides in the overall project structure. Shift-Command-J lets you jump to the exact place in the project navigator. Command plus a digit from 1 to 9 lets you switch between the navigator tabs. And Command plus 0 hides this pane completely. The inspector's pane, the one on the right, supports similar controls. Now let's again focus on the file we're working on. Though this isn't really a good thing, it's not uncommon to see a bunch of symbols stuffed into a single source file. You can of course scroll through it looking for the function, but what you can do instead is press Ctrl+6. This way you can view all of its symbols in a single list. This list supports filtering if you start typing, which greatly simplifies the task of finding the right method. When you're working with code, there's about a million things you might want to do with it. But instead of going through menus, you can find virtually every available action in the Quick Actions window. You open it with Shift-Command-A, and then type the command name. Feeling some VS Code vibes, aren't you? And while you're in a code file, there's one more shortcut. It gives you quick access to a fantastic feature of Xcode. Believe me, this one's much more capable than those half-baked pull requests. When you're working with the code editor, Shift-Command-L opens the library window, and it has code snippets. Some of them are pretty basic, like I don't think you really need help with writing an if-else expression. But the library is not limited to built-in snippets. You can easily create your own. Just select the code you want to turn into a snippet, right-click it, and select Create Code Snippet. In the window that appears, you can give the snippet a name, change its availability scope, and most importantly, assign a keyword which expands into the code. Oh, and by the way, if you want to use placeholders like this, all you gotta do is type this character sequence. I personally have snippets for a few common constructions which are not available in Xcode autocomplete. Section marks and coding keys are among my most used ones. One really good thing about code snippets is that each of them is stored as a separate text file in your user data folder. That means you can quickly copy them to your other computer or share with colleagues, or anyone really. For instance, I've got a repo where I keep my personal snippets, and whenever I set up Xcode on a new computer, I just copy the repo to the user data folder. You can even store the snippets related to your project right in its repo. Just imagine this. Many teams have guidelines for implementing particular patterns. Such guidelines are typically plain markdown files with examples of code. These files often get outdated, because no one's really motivated to keep them up to date. Many of our colleagues don't need guidance, because they know the rules by heart. And those who've just joined the team don't know what to update. But what if, instead of those guidelines, your team could have ready-to-use code snippets? I bet having those commonly used structures handy would be more practical. It helps keep everyone on the same page, and it can actually save you a lot of time during code reviews. There's no need to inspect every single line to see if the pattern was implemented correctly. And when you onboard new members of your team, this hack can solve many of their basic problems. It lets both the newcomer and the mentor focus on the things that are more important than class naming or indentation. I'd say code snippets in Xcode are a real treasure. Alright, these were my personal tips and tricks for Xcode. I discovered some of them just a couple months ago, but now I use them every day. I'm pretty sure it's just a drop in the ocean, so I'd love to learn about your favorite hidden gems in the comments. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Also, don't forget to subscribe for other helpful stuff. It's coming to this channel pretty soon. I hope so. In the meantime, here's something helpful that you can watch right now. Swift macros. They are capable of much more than just UI previews. And Xcode Cloud, which is just like Xcode, only in the cloud, for better or worse. I'll see you later. Until then, make your snippets fly.